Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand, coming to you live from the Golden City. Yes, if you are Bharatiya, you should know which is the Golden City, ladies and gentlemen. It looks all festive behind me. That's just the hotel where we are staying. They've just decorated it and it looks like bhai piche kahin shaadi ho rahi hai. But that's not the case. Heartiest congratulations to Anant Ambani and Radhika Merchant, and we'll get you the latest of all that is happening with their engagement ceremony also through the course of this edition of The Right Stand. But we start with the big news first, the big story, and that's also the subject matter of our discussion and debate. There has always been, ladies and gentlemen, a narrative that has been set about Bharat, and especially Bharat under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The targeting, vilification and deliberate distortion of anything and everything that's been done by Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the government led by him over the last 8 years has been a bone of contention, and it has irked a lot of Indian citizens. There are a lot of people who have said, why is the West running this editorial narrative? Is the West editorial? Why is this biased narrative being run? There have been many who have turned around and said, well, that's media there. There are people who are writing. And sometimes this bias has also often in the past been exposed. There are a lot who have said, let them say what they have to say. But if this propaganda was deliberate, if this propaganda was done with a devious intent, then shouldn't that be called out? Shouldn't those people who are sitting inside these institutions, which are supposed to be championing the fourth pillar of democracy, which are supposed to be putting out the story as it is, and if they are our people who are influencing the narrative with a deliberate devious intent, then shouldn't such people and such entities be called out? Oftentimes, many would want to say a lot of things, but they hang back because they would say that there could be ramifications if we were to go out and put ourselves out there calling these people out, because they are all backed by a certain amount of muscle, legally and otherwise. But what happened in the British Parliament has now allowed everybody to go out and call out those who have run an agenda against Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Modi-led Bharat. Remember, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has the popular vote of Bharat. It is not Modi's India. He's India's Modi, because it is India who's elected him twice over and with an overwhelming mandate, and more than 3 times, and with a phenomenal mandate this time from the state of Gujarat. So when there is a documentary that is put out by the BBC with a perhaps distorted narrative, which after a uproar is pulled out of selected platforms, then many would ask questions. And the person who snubbed someone, a Pakistan origin MP within the British Parliament who tried to needle, was none other than the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. There may be a lot of similarities, variances and convergences in terms of ideas between India and Britain, trade-wise, strategy-wise, otherwise, position-wise. But what Rishi Sunak said perhaps underlined that no more is this distorted narrative going to fly with leaders across the world. He stood there and snubbed Imtiaz Hussain, and he said, I do not agree with the characterization of the Prime Minister in that documentary. That's what he said. With that one line, ladies and gentlemen, has the British Prime Minister himself called out these narrative spinners, called out the BBC, which for his international wing, and I'll go to our guests to be corrected if I'm wrong, gets state funding. So, and are there others also who will now be called out? Now, is calling out enough, or is there a need to correct this aspect, that let's not run an agenda against somebody or a nation under the leadership of somebody at the behest of others? Of course, there were politicians from the opposition who jumped at the opportunity, those who have been perennial Modi baiters, who jumped at the opportunity to push and peddle this entire documentary, but it was pulled down from select platforms. So without wasting time, let's just dive in straight across into this entire aspect of calling out this West Ed spin. We'll go to our guests, but first, let's listen and play out not just what the British Prime Minister said, but also what was the reaction of the MEA of Bharat.
Mr. Speaker, last night the BBC revealed the Foreign Office knew the extent of Narendra Modi's involvement in the Gujarat massacre that paved the way for the persecution of Muslims and other minorities we see in India today, with senior diplomats reporting that the massacre could not have taken place without a climate of impunity created by Modi, and that he was, in the FCO's own words, directly responsible for this violence. Given that hundreds were brutally killed and that families across India and the world, including here in the UK, are still without justice, does the Prime Minister agree with his diplomats in the Foreign Office that Modi was directly responsible? And just what more does the Foreign Office know of his involvement in this grave act of ethnic cleansing?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the UK government's position on this has been clear and long-standing and hasn't changed. Of course, we don't tolerate persecution where it appears anywhere, but I'm not sure I agree at all with the characterisation that the honourable gentleman has put forward.
Do note that this has not been screened in India, so I am only going to comment on the context of what I have heard about or have my colleagues have seen. Let me just make it very clear. We think this is a propaganda piece designed to push a particular discredited narrative. The bias, a lack of objectivity, and frankly a continuing colonial mindset is blatantly visible. If anything, this film or documentary is a reflection on the agency and individuals that are peddling this narrative again. It makes us wonder whether about the purpose of this exercise and the agenda behind it, and frankly we do not wish to dignify such efforts.
Well, nobody wants to dignify such efforts, but such people are drawing state-funded salary. They are also running a particular agenda using a platform that is supposed to be the beacon of journalism, which is independent, free and fair. So then, if this journalism really free and fair, or is it purely agenda-driven? And then platforms which stand to be beacons across the world that set journalistic standards for the rest to follow, are they really following the standards themselves? Many would want to ask a lot of questions, but we'll focus on this agenda-driven journalism and especially this targeting and vilification of one leader and a nation led by this one leader. Adit Kothari, founder of the Indic Society, is with us. Abhi Yogi, founder Sanatan Sanstha of UK, is also with us. Abhishek Banerjee, columnist, with us. Pandit Satish K. Sharma, chair of the British Board of Dharmic Scholars, also with us this evening on The Right Stand, debate number one, or let's say the story and topic number one. Namaste, Jai Hind, and thank you very much for all of you gentlemen. All of you look very, very cozy where you are, and I am standing where it's just getting colder by the minute, ladies and gentlemen, but it's a beautiful part of Bharat that I am. So sometimes it's good to be up and about, and I'm up and about for a good cause. We'll unveil that through the course of the next few days here on our channel. But let's get to the issue at hand. And Pandit Satish K. Sharma ji, how frustrating has it been all this while? And that one line by the British Prime Minister has just undone perhaps the agenda that's been attempted over decades. Or is this not enough?
Anandji, Jai Shri Ram, and my sympathy. You look as though you're in Parliament Square, freezing like most of the people in Parliament Square today are, while we're warm. But thanks for the opportunity to have a chat. Anandji, it struck me that you and I are having many, many conversations, and that's an indication, really, of, I think, the fixation of the British politics and the British media with Bharat. Why on earth are members of the Indian diaspora in the UK and members of the Indian media having so many conversations? It is because there is a fixation, an obsession. It's almost as though the pillars of the British establishment, they're stalking the establishments and the government and the parliamentarians in Bharat. It's almost as though we have a jilted lover who is determined not to let go of a relationship that was an abusive relationship and has died a long time ago. The BBC, I think, is playing the role of the stalking, jilted lover here. But it's not about frustration, Anandji. It's actually something which I think is great to see. You know, the BBC has a reputation of being the global narrative setter. It used to create the narrative for peoples all across the globe. And one of the narratives that it had very successfully created was the narrative about itself as the arbiter of standards, of equality, of decency, of journalistic integrity. And that narrative has disappeared. We saw in Leicester how the British Broadcasting Corporation the BBC became what I'm going to name the GGC, the Global Gaslighting Corporation. Suddenly it transformed into an organization whose role was to gaslight the innocent while protecting those who were perpetrators of violence. And that's a good thing to see. The more people who recognize that the BBC is not necessarily a resource of good news, the better it is for everybody. The second thing I'd just like to say is that something important has emerged in Parliament, and I think it's wonderful that it has. And let's just be quite clear. It wasn't the British government which published this report. It was the Labour government which published this report. And I'm quite intrigued, and I will make inquiries on what basis did Jack Straw, the Labour government, the Home Secretary, feel he had the authority to send an investigative team to Bharat to conduct an investigation. I'm going to try and get a copy of that report, and it's just another indication of how inappropriate this is. But it's great that we're seeing the disappearance of these global narrative creators. You know, the last thing, which is a little bit of a tragedy, is that we're seeing the pillars of the British establishment pretty much at war with themselves. You know, the Labour Party is at war with the BBC is at war with the government, the church is at war with pretty much everybody, and it's a tragedy to see that this is a chaos that's emerging, and what they're trying to do, I think, is divert attention to affairs in Bharat, produce programs and documentaries which relate to a period in the last century. Why are they not focusing on Tony Blair and his destruction of 300,000 Iraqis? The Labour Party perhaps should be asked to ask the BBC to do that. So it's nothing other than sleight of hand. It's nothing other than the dirty tricks that the BBC does from time to time, as we saw in Leicester, and as I think we're going to see more and more of.
Well, somewhere this agenda is not just driven by a personality or a person like Narendra Modi. There are viewers who are writing to me saying that the BBC has always carried agendas against nations which it has wanted it to be perceived in a particular way. So if it's not Modi and Hindutva now, it would have been something else before 2014, but somehow or the other continue to portray nations as they would like them to be seen so that they can control a particular narrative, and perhaps somewhere there are other editorial or journalistic organizations across the West who have followed that agenda. So that's also a suggestion. Since you mentioned this entire mission that was sent across at that point in time, Panditji, I just want to read out what the Foreign Secretary during that period, Kanwal Sibal, had to say at that time. Now, we're just putting out some of his comments. He said, "I'm aware of the mischief UK mission. UK had sent their diplomat to Gujarat. Highly slanted report was circulated to EU envoys. Was informed of this by an EU envoy. Warned missions in Delhi to not interfere. I was Foreign Secretary during this period." That's what Kanwal Sibalji himself has quoted and said. So we'll put out his comments. But Adit Kothari, is this going to get organizations to draw the lines? Because the BBC is also the British Broadcasting Corporation. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Does its international wing not get funded by the state? Doesn't it come under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Britain?
It does, Anandji, and as the British Indian diaspora, I've been speaking to a number of members of our community, and I cannot tell you the level of outrage at this particular biased reporting has caused within our conscience, to the extent that there is a movement that people are running within our community to stop funding the BBC completely, because it so much so seems that they're actually using the monies taken from us to essentially run rabid and malicious campaigns against our own community, against our own civilizational values. I mean, what the BBC has been running for so many years has been an anti-India narrative, but since 2014, this has completely transcended into a different dimension, into a domain of Hindu missia and Hindu phobicness. We see this time and time again where they use Jai Shri Ram as a provocative call. They call Holi a filthy festival. It's evident that BBC have a slant of biasness towards Hindu and Indic civilizational values, and that is what they've been doing since 2014. Most importantly, I'd like to draw your attention to this particular broadcast, primarily because it wasn't released in India, and I believe there is a particular reason why it wasn't done so. It was only done for the local consumption, for the local public of Britain, and it was done so with a malicious intent by the left liberal academia in Britain and the left-leaning journalists in Britain to draw a parallel of Hindu fascism, and they've used Narendra Modi as the poster boy of that Hindu fascism, and they've tried to draw a parallel with the British Prime Minister, who calls himself a Hindu, who proudly wears his religion up his sleeve. They're trying to draw that parallel, and they're essentially going to use this to attack the leader of the Conservative Party. That's the way I essentially see it playing out from a British polity perspective. And, this is not going to just stop here. It's going to continue for the next 1.5 to 2 years. Elections are, the general elections are due in India in 2024. And they are so, UK is also going to go into elections very soon. So this kind of rapid reportage is going to continue from various corners of the left-leaning intelligentsia, which do not see or feel very uncomfortable with leaders like Narendra Modi, who sort of do not identify themselves with the colonial collegiate system anymore, and essentially it makes them feel extremely uncomfortable.
The other thing is one would want these people to also be taken to the cleaners legally. Someone has to step up. If not, then India should sue them on the international courts or take them to court. Somebody should go ahead and not just punch holes in the misinformation and the propaganda, but make them bleed for it financially and also make them apologize on a global platform. They need to go back. We need to get to a system, Abhishek Banerjee, where nations will take such organizations to the cleaners and get them to apologize across all their platforms in big bold on their masthead. We are sorry, India, for putting out a slanted piece because we differ with you politically or ideologically.
Not sure where that leaves the BBC, because they are coming across as these rogue intellectuals who are probably embarrassing even the British government. And maybe they are really unhappy with the fact that, India has surpassed them and become the 5th largest economy. But there is really no shortage of reasons for the BBC to hate us. I mean, first of all, we are a former colony, so that jealousy angle is there. On top of that, there is a race angle. I mean, we are not a white majority country, and they are. Probably bothers them as well. And then on top of that, we are still a nation that, does not subscribe to any of the major Abrahamic religions in most part. That also probably bothers them. And then there are two actual remarks that I want to make. I mean, these intellectual classes, they try this false dichotomy between Hindu and Hindutva, and they'll say, you can say anything to Hindutva. I don't buy this narrative, because what is Hindutva? It's just political expression by Hindus. If you say that Hindus are the only group of people in the world who have no right to unite and give a political expression, then obviously you hate us. And the other thing is that they are desperately trying to, link all these fascism things. They are trying to link fascism to something in India. The truth is that the BBC should start reading some real history, and they'll find out that fascism is actually a church-backed movement for decades. So they should read up some real history and stop trying to find ghosts of fascism when none exist. They should look for it in their own Western civilization, because that's where it came from.
No, and Abhishek, the fact is that this doesn't stop with the BBC. There is a litany of instances where the rest of the West has also given this editorial spin. We'll put out all that information as I get your comment and take this forward with Adit and also Pandit Satish Sharma. Yes, Abhishek.
That it gets some amount of scrutiny. If you look at some other publications which are in like French or German or Spanish language, they are saying much worse things. If you see, there are Spanish language publications in South America which are using literal abuse words for our great freedom fighters like Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. They're using the F word. And because they don't speak English, so they don't get as much scrutiny. So this is happening all around the world. The liberal elite is basically out to get us. They are worried that there is competition from serious, proud Hindus on the world stage. They can't stand that, and they are throwing a fit about it. And they know that in India they have lost the game. So they play the game only exclusively abroad.
No, but then these are the people who are also coming to India, Adit Kotari. So if they are busy trying to form an opinion, cloud the judgment and opinion of the people back in Europe and also across other countries across the world, then what? Something needs to be done to correct this or this to be called out. Because then people will come with the perception. This is going to influence people who will get into places where decisions will be made, where calls will be made on business, trade, economics, at all levels, tourism.
Absolutely, and I completely concur that, it's high time that this, from a state infrastructure perspective, I think the Indian state needs to call out this kind of rabidness that has been projected for very long. I think it's high time we take them to the cleaners, as you mentioned, and we make them accountable for the kind of reportage that they've essentially produced. From a community perspective level, what we are trying to do as British Indians, we have written enormous number of letters to the BBC, essentially outlining that they've completely lost their objectivity with this particular broadcast, and it's completely a one-sided narrative, completely ignores and diminishes the Supreme Court of India's verdict and the SIT Commission, which was set up, which took a sitting chief minister and interviewed him for 6 to 8 hours, made the sitting chief minister go through a narco test, which was never heard of, never done in the previous history of India. And they've ignored all of those facts. They've ignored the fact that the sitting chief minister of Gujarat during the time of the 2002 riots had written to his neighboring states, which were Congress-ruled states, ruled by, Digvijay Singh was one of the chief ministers, and he had requested for police assistance, which was essentially denied at that time because they feared of a spillover of the riots into their particular states. So those are the kind of things that they've completely omitted from their reportage, and we have written to the BBC. Our next step is essentially going to be to write to the Ofcom and essentially outline our enrage and our complete dissatisfaction with how BBC has dealt with this issue.
No, they have also Pandit Satish Sharma totally ignored what the Supreme Court said while rejecting Zakir Jafri's charges against Narendra Modi and 60 other officials. And this was as of the 24th of June 2022, where they said inaction or failure of some officials or one section of state administration cannot be the basis to infer a pre-planned criminal conspiracy by the state government. Allegations of criminal conspiracy at the highest level cannot be inferred by simply linking the state's failures. A conspiracy can be alleged only if there is clear proof of meeting of minds to commit a crime. No fault can be found with the approach of the SIT in submitting the final report dated February 8, 2012, which is backed by firm logic, expositing analytical mind and dealing with all aspects objectively for discarding the allegations regarding larger criminal conspiracy at the highest level for causing and precipitating mass violence across the state against the minority community during the relevant period. This is what Justice Khanwilkar had also written, who authored this 452-page judgment for the bench. And this is part of the judgment. So if the BBC in its documentary has ignored the top court of our country in cases with 2002, is this not a legal ground to take them to court? To make an example, somewhere, Panditji, one gets the understanding that you have to knock one person down, not just hit them, but to knock them out totally so that the rest back off.
Anandji, I agree entirely with what Shri Banerjee pointed out when he was identifying the very many reasons why the BBC and the British establishment should hate India and India's rising. Now, it's worth considering that we are seeing the long, painful death throes of a world order established out of white supremacy, Euro-Christian colonialism. And the prospect of an India with a $10 trillion economy, with an integrated national infrastructure, with communications between businesses and with academics, all indigenous, it's a frightening prospect for those people who still don't see the writing on the wall. And I would say that we shouldn't seek to gag the BBC. Every opportunity is an opportunity whereby they reveal their true colours on a daily basis. We are now seeing the smile being replaced with the fangs that have always been hidden just behind that rictus grin. And what we should be doing now is using every opportunity to break this global understanding that the BBC is reputable and reliable. It is not. Its purpose was to gaslight colonial populations and to conceal colonial crimes. Now, every agency and every nation which stands up and says, we're going to tell our own truth, is going to naturally reveal what the BBC has been doing for a long time and what was done by the British deep state. But one of the ways in which I think the British Hindu community, in addition to what Aditya has said, will respond with is as follows. You will see within the next month or so a huge number of British Hindus publicly destroying their licenses, refusing to pay this license tax. You know, it's a colonialist trick that the slaves must always pay for their own enslavement. You know, with the BBC, it's the slaves must always pay for their own gaslighting and their own conditioning. And so we will see a huge number of our own British Hindus joining many British people, indigenous people, in either shredding or burning their licenses very, very publicly. We will see a large number of our own community beginning to challenge at the highest levels with parliamentarians the fact that the BBC receives any state funding at all. But this is part of the decline of this colonial power. We are seeing its decay, and its decay can't happen soon enough. So it will be an exercise. I think the Hindu community in Great Britain and the indigenous community in Bharat, everybody should join together to actually gag this corporation, but not by legal means. Let's have their offices in New Delhi closed down. Let's see the protests outside challenging this colonialist supremacist narrative. That will be newsworthy. And when that happens in New Delhi, what will happen is every single capital around the world will be watching it, and then the BBC will get a bloody nose.
Well, that's another way of looking at it, but there are others who are also watching the broadcast who feel that some amount of punitive action and a global apology needs to be made. One of them needs to be made to pay for what they are trying to do in terms of propaganda, because they're using money which is supposed to be for putting out the news without any bias, without any agenda, and to show a nation as it is, rather than use and give a platform to those who are paid for activists or paid for propagandists. So there are multiple points of view here, but thank you very much for joining us on the broadcast. I have to quickly move on. We've got a big update coming in on the face-off between wrestlers and the Wrestling Federation of India. Going across to that update that the Sports Minister Anurag Thakur, Youth Affairs and Sports Minister Anurag Thakur has said that they will take whatever steps are required to try and break this deadlock. And there is an update that he is likely to meet the players at 10 p.m. this evening.
तो यही कहूँगा, खिलाड़ियों ने जो आरोप लगाए वो गंभीर किस्म के हैं और उसका संज्ञान लेते हुए भारत सरकार ने, खेल मंत्रालय ने तुरंत कार्रवाई करते हुए रेसलिंग फेडरेशन ऑफ इंडिया को नोटिस भी दिया, 72 घंटे के अंदर जवाब भी मांगा है, और इसके अलावा जो कैंप लगना था उसको भी पोस्टपोन कर दिया गया है प्रभावी रूप से। और हम सदा खिलाड़ियों से पहले भी मिलते रहे और आज भी मेरा प्रयास है कि मैं वापस जाकर खिलाड़ियों से मिलूंगा ताकि उनकी बात को सुन भी सकें और जो उचित कार्रवाई होगी वो भी करेंगे। और मैं यही कह सकता हूं, खिलाड़ियों के हितों के लिए और खेल के हित के लिए पहले भी सरकार ने लगातार कदम उठाए हैं, अब भी सरकार ने कहीं कोई संकोच नहीं किया। तुरंत कार्रवाई करते हुए हमने नोटिस भी दिया था, जवाब भी मांगा 72 घंटे में, कैंप को भी पोस्टपोन कर दिया है, और भी आगे जो कदम उठाने पड़ेंगे वो भी उठाएंगे।
Never forgive, never forget. What happened on the 13th of January 1990 should not be forgotten by generations, should not be just brushed on the carpet or perhaps removed from the annals of history because it's a sorry statement of who we are as a democracy, ladies and gentlemen. We as Bharat looked the other way when more than 60,000 families, as acknowledged by the Jammu and Kashmir government itself, these are the official numbers that I am quoting, were forced to leave their home. When more than 700 women were raped as claimed by the Kashmiri Hindus themselves. When a series of ethnic cleansing efforts were unleashed on the streets of Jammu and Kashmir, on the streets of a very part of Bharat, where an entire state or an entire region there was an attempt to ethnically cleanse it. This demographic ethnic cleansing was looked away. It has not yet been punished, and those who are forced to flee have not yet been given justice. But is there a light at the end of the tunnel in this fight of the Kashmiri Hindus who continue to suffer silently and whose suffering continue to be brushed away or laughed away because of the temerity and the perseverance of these families, of those who had to flee? They didn't migrate, ladies and gentlemen. They had to run. They had to flee. And they fled to the rest of Bharat and to the rest of the world. But because they have been blessed by Saraswati, because Ma Saraswati, because they have always have been in the pursuit of knowledge, because Kashmir was the cradle of our civilization, which was the seat of knowledge and from where knowledge flowed through the rest of the country, they have continued to build the bricks of their broken homes. They have built their homes somewhere else. But are we going to fault them? That they are not in misery, they are seemingly doing well for themselves, not just well for themselves, they are shining beacons for Bharat across the world. So let them be, what's the big deal? Is that the right way to look at it? Or should we look back and say, your sufferings should not be forgotten and there is justice that should be given to you? And after the abrogation of Article 370, is there a possibility of their return to their homeland with respect? Is there a possibility ever? And perhaps are we seeing some light at the end of a never-ending dark tunnel? That's what it looked like until 3.5 years ago. Let's ask global Kashmiri Hindus who are joining us. Often we have endeavored to speak with Kashmiri Hindus who have left Kashmir and who are in various parts of Bharat. But tonight we thought, let's go across and speak to those who have gone through the rest of the world and who continue to fight on, continue to suffer silently. Those tears may have dried up, but the heart still bleeds, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Vivek Kaul, Hindu Renaissance activist, is with us. Adesh Dhar, victim of the Kashmir genocide, is also with us. Khushbu Mattu, consulting editor with Network 18, with us. And we should have Zafar Sahito, founder and central chief organizer of the Jai Sindh Freedom Movement, JSFM. We try and go across to all of them one by one. I have Dr. Vivek Kaul with me. Adesh Dhar and Khushbu Mattu are already through. Namaste, Jai Hind, and thank you so much for joining us here on this very special broadcast. Dr. Vivek Kaul, what are your thoughts today, sir? 33 years later, do you believe there is some semblance or hope for justice, possibilities of return, some level of perhaps killing this entire soch which said that this is for us only, the othering, anybody who's a non-Muslim needs to be out of Kashmir? That was the soch, wasn't it?
Yes. Anand, till we have people like you and others in the media, we will never give up our fight to go back. This is a fight till we are alive and it goes to the next generation. As you said, because of education, we are all over the world. And I remember many people know and many don't know. It was me and my parents who had gone to Balasaheb Thackeray to tell him that we will beg, but we need education. And he said it is very easy to give education to you because Manoj Joshi Saab already runs education institutions. That was a game changer. Without that, we would have been on the roadside. That education has, as you said rightly, that we are all over the world and all over India in a lot of fields. But our heart always weeps for Kashmir because we were very super patriotic, like the Ladakhis, like the Dogras, in a state which was very anti-India. So our hyper-patriotism was like army. So that patriotism has not died. Since I have come to this country in 1996, I have been to Geneva, UNO. I have been in so many places with other brothers and sisters from Kashmir to highlight our, plight at the hands of Pakistanis. So to answer your question, that we will never give up. We are like Israelis. We are. You must have met many Kashmiri Pandits. We are not normal human beings. हम तुले हुए लोग हैं. कितने गाजी आए, कितने गाजी गए, हम वापस जाएंगे.
जी. But इसके लिए, do you think, Adesh, that now is the right time that perhaps the entire displaced Kashmiri Hindu groups who are still in touch with each other somewhere reorganize and also take matters into their own hands? One, for justice, there has to be a concerted attempt. You can't have the courts turning around and saying too much water has passed under the bridge and we cannot go back and investigate. There has to be some level of organization and also some level of organization to show the might and clout of all the displaced groups and what they can do if they organize themselves. Do you believe that that is something which is necessary and perhaps now is the right time?
Yes, Anand, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Anand, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Adesh. Please go ahead. Okay, yes, I can. Okay. Please go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. So, see, Kashmiri Pandits' exodus is a cultural genocide. We have lived in Kashmir for thousands of years. We are the original inhabitants and we were othered out because we are Hindus. Let me be very blunt about it, without sugarcoating. Okay. Now, at this point of time, I have seen the political apathy from the government starting from the beginning of how this whole situation was put under the carpet. And nobody in India knew that even Kashmiri Pandit exodus happened. It was recently the movie Kashmir Files which came into light that people started getting the idea of what happened to the Kashmiri Pandits. And on top of that, you see the whole Indian situation where they started talking about it as a propaganda and all that stuff. So, yes, to answer your question, definitely there needs to be a concerted effort to, everybody come together and, ask the government and enforce our views that we are the original inhabitants of that place and we need to be safeguarded and we need to be given our space there. At this point of time, even with this whole PM package happening, Kashmiri Pandits are getting killed. So nothing has improved from Kashmiri Pandit standpoint. And you see, let us be very blunt that Kashmiri Pandits lost everything. We lost our jobs, we lost our livelihood, we lost the whole properties which were burnt, our temples were burnt. So, this is the high time the community comes together and then the support of the government to say that, enough is enough. Means how long can the Kashmiri Pandit tolerate this whole thing? Right now, at this point of time, the government is not giving salaries to the Kashmiri Pandits who were told to go to Kashmir for jobs and they are getting threat letters every day. So, it's a Hindu genocide. So definitely it needs to be a concerted effort, consolidation of the people and, somebody needs to speak up again for us. See the Supreme Court, it's bizarre that a Supreme Court does not give us the hearing which we deserve. We hear, I don't want to digress about it. We see the Sikh massacre and the Gujarat. It goes into the media for such a long time and it's going again and again. But for Kashmiri Pandit, nobody talks about it because we don't go on the streets and start doing stone pelting and start picking up guns. Is that the way that we should be heard? So yes, to answer your question, definitely we need our place. We need our space there.
No, not just space, but somewhere I'm also asking the point that is this the right time to perhaps reorganize and perhaps to also build that entire social movement where Kashmiri Pandits will go back and say, no, we want to claim back what is ours. We want to go and adopt some of the temples and you can't build it, we'll build it and then go to town about it. You won't fight the case, we will fight the case and we will get the best amongst our minds, legal minds, and we'll employ them because we can afford to. I'm just saying perhaps right now is the time because at that time the establishment was not on your side, Adeshji. Right now, the establishment is on your side. Yes, it's unfortunate that there are still killings which are happening, but those numbers are fewer, far fewer, and these are acts of desperation. And I think in your own intelligence, you'd know there is a difference between what happened in the 80s and the 90s and what is happening now. This is like the last of the smoldering fires, which are before they burn out, they try and burn a bit and try and chatpatate hain. So that's what is happening, and we need to look through that. We need to ensure that that also doesn't happen. We need to actually sometimes, I've got Zafar Saito also with us and Khushbu Mattu also. Khushbu Mattu, sometimes I just feel that if the Kashmiri Hindu groups, which are so many, if they could organize and if they could just perhaps sometimes rub it into the establishment and say, listen, you can't protect us, we will protect ourselves. This is how we will engage, personal security. This is what we will provide. We will embarrass you if you cannot do it for us. We will stand up and fight. Perhaps is this the right time? Because enough of this waiting for somebody to do something because nobody seems to care. That sometimes isn't that frustrating. And let's organize. Don't you feel as a Kashmiri Hindu that is something which every group needs to do?
Yes, Anand, absolutely. There is a lot of limitation in that. The question comes from a very utopian, point of view that, it's very theoretical. There is a lot of limitation in organizing, and the community in general is frankly a bit dejected right now. PM package employees, like Adeshji mentioned, are, yes, there has been a lot of improvement. We've been doing good. There has been progress, and the numbers are less. And Vivek Kaulji mentioned all the right things. The past has been improved a bit, but the current situation right now is not good. We are dejected. Not even PM package employees. Everybody else in the community is dejected because we cannot think of organizing right now and bringing any change on our own. Especially when Supreme Court did this recently, and PM package employees, their salaries are locked right now, and only those people, who have Z security or who have protection or who have accommodation are able to freely say that, we will be able to live there. So it is a long way from rehabilitation, and I appreciate when it is the time. I appreciated the abrogation. I appreciated a lot of moves. I am appreciating the opening of movie theaters. I am appreciating every little festival that is happening in the valley, every person, every Kashmiri Pandit that is returning, that is going and happily posting about their own homeland. I am appreciating that, but I also have the right to be a bit critical because I want more out of this. Absolutely. I want each and every Kashmiri Pandit to go back to the valley. I want all the youngsters, all these PM package employees, my own cousins, all of them are 23, 24-year-olds. And I'm telling you, when they meet me at functions, when they meet me, I have no answer for them. I have no answer for their WhatsApps. So it is a collective duty of ours before organizing to make the things right, and then we organize, and then we rehabilitate these people first who actually signed up for rehabilitation, and then the others will follow. It's like, Kashmir, हमारे घर हमेशा जलते रहे हैं, but सेकने वाले अलग अलग रहे हैं हमेशा, तो वो आग तो कभी बुझी ही नहीं. I mean to say that we need, it's a long road home.
नहीं, आप जो कह रही हैं बहुत सही कह रही हैं, बहुत वजह फरमा रही हैं आप. You are very right. एक और बात है that ये एक जेनोसाइड है, ये एक exodus है which escapes international attention. Minority rights ka hanan, the way minority rights have been snatched in this place. How is it this escapes everybody's attention? Nobody talks about it.
An inconvenient truth. It is an inconvenient truth, Anand. That is why it's escaping. It's not cool to talk about Kashmiri Hindus, It's not cool in circles.
Could I answer that question, Anand, very categorically? See,
yes, please. Please.
I will tell you honestly, it escaped because I was born in Kashmir and I have lived through that January 19th. I was living in Chanapura, Kashmir when that whole situation happened. I was in 10th class. So it became the apathy of the central government when everybody of us left. then there was a theory created in Kashmir that Jagmohan made them leave. Suddenly they came, Jagmohan told us, he sent us a WhatsApp message and we left our homes, which we had lived for thousands of years. That was the theory created. And then that theory was brought by the so-called pseudo-secular, country within India, where, they bought that whole narrative. So it was killed there and then. So there was it didn't even get traction in India, not to talk about the international media. So since this whole Kashmir file came into picture, and it is giving a lot of pain to a lot of people, because that inconvenient truth is coming in front, you can see on the media where they talk about propaganda, this, that. So that's the reason, it has not been come for. And to answer your other question about...
No, the vehemence with which that should have been countered. Yes, Vivek ji, I have Zafar Saito also, but Vivek ji, please come in and then I'll go to Zafar ji.
30 seconds. Yeah. I'll just take 30 seconds. When your own government, your own parent doesn't recognize you, how can you expect your outsiders from India to recognize the pain? Every time when the government doesn't recognize, are we migrants? Are we Holocaust survivors or whatever? The government has no say. So how do you expect any other country to take up our cause? They won't. They say you don't exist. We do not exist. It is because of our noise.
I would like to add something to it.
This migrant itself is wrong. The government has to,
the government has to recognize us.
Recognition is you're displaced.
Is a very civilized word. Right now, we are being called bhagode. We are being called. Recognizing and all is also very, fancy. Recognizing is not an issue right now. We are being called cowards.
This is where I understand. Khushbu ji, I totally understand, and I've heard all of this, and it hurts me. I'm not Kashmiri, but I am Bharatiya. I'm a Hindu. I'm a Bharatiya, and it hurts me when my own fellow citizens do not bother about my own fellow citizens. But where I am coming from, and I'm taking this to Zafar ji, is this the right time to perhaps go back and say and mount a campaign to refresh what could not be done perhaps in the 90s? Do it now. Reset the narrative and go after those who call this a propaganda. Go after those and get a little aggressive, get a little organized, and make a little bit of a noise to wake up perhaps those who have forgotten. Zafarji. And start internationally and nationally. Both ways. You. Yes, Zafar. Namaste.
Namaskar and thank you everyone. Thank you for having me. The voice of unheard pupils must be listened now, because it is time, not only in Kashmir but in Sindh, in Balochistan, in Pashtun, everywhere. The problem and the root of problem is Pakistan. I see this exodus not as 33 years, but I see this exodus since 1947. It is not the war against Kashmiri Pandits, it's the war against Hindus by Islamist groups, the ideology on which Pakistan was created. When Vivek ji was here and we were doing the campaign for Kashmir files in America, I said him, there are files of Hindus in Sindh. There should be a Sindhi Hindus files in Sindh. There should be a Bangladesh file. So it is not only for Kashmiri people or Pandits, but this war is imposed by Islamist ideology, or who want to have the country to be an Islamic state. This whole Hindu nation of Bharata, they want to change them as Muslims. Ghazwa Hind. What is Ghazwa Hind? That is the same ideology. Yeah. And when someone was saying that every Kashmiri Pandit should return to the Kashmir and defend their motherland. No, I want to say here that every Indian, every Bharati should defend Kashmir, because that is just a identity of Kashmir, but that is India. That is India. That is India. And every Bharati should go there. I know there are lot of whole pools, and there is lot of game going on in government or different things, but it is time. It is time that each and every Bharati living abroad or in India, they have to come forward and to come out of that.
Somewhere one gets the feeling. Yes. Somewhere one gets the feeling, and I have to wind up. And let's wind up on the note that the time is now. For long, there has been injustice has been tolerated. It's time that there is a certain level of intolerance shown to injustice and to being ignored, and that can only happen collectively. It's always the collective might that is always shown, and somewhere one believes that it's time to do that. If it could not be done in the past, or if those efforts were wasted in the past, it's time to perhaps give it one more go and say we will no longer tolerate injustice. We are a very tolerant group. We have tolerated a lot of hurt and suffering and humiliation, but no longer will we tolerate injustice. We will become intolerant to injustice or being ignored. I thank you all for joining us. I thank you all, and let's hope this message rings out loud and clear. We're going to take a very, very short break. Stay with us.